This will be a quick primer on how to use the equation editor, which is very important for the communication section of this first test as well as for your exam. So the best way to practice this, of course, you can always practice this in the discussion forum, right? So like the same equation editor that I'm going to use on the quiz is the one that's accessible in the discussion forum. So feel free to practice it there too. But if you just want to load up this quiz here, how to upload written work, right? And then I'm gonna start it up. So again, this one I walked through a video earlier of how do you attach a picture of your work, which is okay for the thinking section of this test. Although in general, because the exam we're not going to be accepting pictures, we need like the equation editor. That's why I'm forcing you to use the equation editor, right? So we get some practice with that and prepare. In any case, when you go down here and so this is let's imagine I'm doing the test right now, and the question says something like describe the end behavior. Create a function that has top right to bottom left end behavior and write it in factored form. Okay, so let's say just for example, I need to create a function which travels from the bottom left to the top right and express it in factored form. Okay, so let's say this is what I was supposed to do. So I'm going to go under here where it says insert other options, and the very first thing that comes up is equation. Okay, so when I hit equation, there's a whole bunch of these options. I'm just going to use the first one, graphical equation. Now this, it represents your equation editor. And I just want to share a couple of the things with you here. And as we sort of go further in the course, we can always revisit this. So first of all, if I'm going to make something in factored form, I'm going to type, f of x equals, nothing unusual about that. And then let's make it, x plus 1, and then x minus 4. And let's say I want x minus 4 to be squared. So I can go to this superscript and hit squared, right? And there you go, insert, and I've just made an equation using the editor that has, whatever, it has a squared in it, it has brackets, and so on and so on. Now, let's say I wanted to describe its end behavior, right? So once again, I'm going to go back, I'm going to open up an equation, and let's see, how can I do its end behavior? So up here, you'll see there's a bunch of different symbols, like your less than or greater than. Let's say you're doing your domain and range, right? I could open a curly bracket. X is an element of real numbers. Let's say such that x is greater than or equal to -2, right? Or whatever you might need. Now for end behavior specifically, right? I notice that there's arrows on this third one, which is where I'm gonna suggest we go. And I'm going to write, so let's write x approaches, right? And we'll go back here to infinity. So let's write it like this. As x approaches infinity, comma, f of x, I can go back to my arrow, approaches, well, in our case, we wanted to approach infinity, right? So as x approaches infinity, f of x approaches infinity, right? And I've used the equation editor to express my knowledge very, very clearly. Let's go ahead and finish our end behavior by saying as x approaches negative infinity this time, negative infinity, comma, f of x also approaches, so again over to my arrow, approaches negative infinity. And now I can say, I can use the equation editor to properly express in real mathematical form what it is I want to say. Okay? Now, just because it might come up, I just want to go through, like, let's say a couple more things in the editor in case you need them. So one of the really useful ones is just fractions, right? So let's say, we do 2x minus 1 over 6 plus 4, equals 1, something like this. Like, everything you might need for, like, regular equations is here. All of your signs, plus, multiply, subtract, divide, and everything. Greater than and less than are here. Square roots, multiple, cube root, x, and so on is here. Sine x, if you want to type it out, is here. Pi is here for when we need that later, right? So really, I think a lot of the things that we could do here, we can do on the equation editor. So again, let's say we're looking at a quadratic, negative, okay, 1/2 x plus 2 squared minus 6 equals -8. Okay, let's say we were solving that equation. Well, to solve that equation, what do? You copy it, paste it again, and you deal with one thing at a time. So first thing I would deal with here is plus 6, right? I move the 6 to the other side. So I get this. Once again, copy it, paste it again. Now this time, I'm going to deal with, so -8 plus 6 is of course -2. This time I'm going to deal with -1/2. To deal with -1/2, I'm going to multiply this side by -2, right? And multiplying it by -2 is what's going to cancel out the -1/2, right? Both sides would be canceled. So then once again, it's like I'll copy it, paste it again, and on this side I now have 4, right? -2 times -2 is 4. And to deal with this, I'm going to square root. Now, of course, remember, like we've been learning about functions, right? When you square root, it's not a function. There are two answers, so you got to show that. So how do you show that? You put this little plus or minus sign, and then your square root. And I'm taking the plus or minus square root of 4, and that's going to be equal to, with this squared gone, right? So now I can say x plus 2 equals 2, in which case x equals 0, or x plus 2 equals -2, in which case x equals -4. I can then insert this, and I've got myself my equation. Now, this is so when you as you can see, it sometimes creates like this unorganized mess, and I've just spent the last, you don't want to know, trying to get this to work better. But the best I can come up with is just this. Okay, so you got your equation. At the beginning of every line, you just write this double slash. Okay, and I know this is horrible, and I'm going to see if there's a better way of doing this, but at least for now, it lets us solve it. So, you double slash at the beginning of every line, right? And then it will look exactly the way you intended to, just with all these slashes at it. But at least this means that it creates creates a new line for everyone. Just quickly, because this is an issue, there is one other way that you can sort of approach this, which is if you go under equation and a graphical equation, and you go over here to a matrix, you can make a matrix, make a table that's, let's say, 6 lines long, and then you could post, you could each line you could write a new step. So negative, we could just do the same thing here. So I'll just quickly type it out again. So we get that step, so we multiply them together, we get 4. Okay, then copy paste that one into the next one. We get plus or minus 2, and that's now that the squared is gone. And then I can get x equals 0 or x equals -4, and those would be my solutions. And that's sort of like a nicer way of doing it. So I know this is not ideal, and I'm going to work on how we can improve this. But for the time being, if you want to type out your equation, and when you go to save it or show it, it's all coming across one line. You can fix that by doing these double forward slashes. Okay, so double forward slash at the beginning of every line will force the computer to put it on the next line. Another very nice way you can do this is just do it with a matrix or a table. So again, you go over here, you go over to tables, and then this thing is all listed like a table. If you hit the thing at the end, which is the context tab, we can get them to all start from the left, and then it basically looks pretty much perfect. Okay, so I'm not really care about that. I'm willing to look through the double slashes. Obviously, I'm willing to look through the if it's not aligned all to the side. I mean, I just want to see that you can do your math using this tool. And another, I guess I'll say a last sort of scenario or way to do it is to just literally just make a new equation every time. So x plus 2 equals 4, and then that's done. And then I go on to my next line. Okay, what's my next line? x equals 4 take away 2, right? Bring it to the other side. I would not expect you to show this, by the way. I would expect you to do that in your head, but you know, just to show. You can also just sort of like make it, like just keep making an equation every new line. I mean, I know that's not ideal, but at least it's something. Okay, so hopefully 3 ways there that you can use to solve this weird problem of the equation editor not making a new line. And I'm going to get in touch with the people who run this software and see if I can get to the bottom of what's going on here. But at least this helps us for now.